Hey, what's going on, guys? Awesome here. So, checking out the prototype server for the upcoming new patch here. This is gonna be a really large patch. It's gonna impact the game in many ways. This patch basically gets rid of Squad 2.0, brings in new armor changes, and adds in a token system. So, huge changes. So, pretty much, you're going to notice here every single item, every single weapon, whatever it is, every single tank, vehicle, everything has a value on it now. And they call these things tokens. Even the ammo associated with every single vehicle has a value on it. Supply crates, they also have a value on them. Everything, like bonus ammo, bonus supply crates, and bonus mods on guns. These all have values on them, token values. They're all going to be 10 tokens, but most guns you're going to have, like, let's say 5 mods on them. The more mods you put on your gun, the more tokens it costs. And basically that means the longer it's going to take you to respawn with such a weapon. Pretty much every single second that you're in a game, you get about 5 tokens. Now, I'll be looking at some actual in-game footage, so it'll be a lot more clear. But right now, I'll just go a little bit over basics of equipment, tanks, prices to be looking at, and potentially gear and whatnot you should structure your characters for to just get the most out of them. So first off, let's look at some just standard infantry values now. We can go up here, we can see my soldier currently costs 390 tokens. This is every single time I want to redeploy or respawn with this character. That's 390. You can have a total of 1,000 tokens, and like I said, you get about 5 tokens per 1 second of actual in-game time. So 390 tokens, this comes out to, say, just over a minute of respawn. So as long as I'm surviving 1 minute and not dying within a minute, I can basically sustain the cost of this soldier and keep respawning with this guy. Now you can get up to 1,000 tokens, so once I die, it's going to deduct the 390 off my guy. Then if I was at 1,000, I'd still have about 610. Then I can respawn again, and if I survive a minute, I'll be back up to 1,000 tokens. And then I die again, I'll be back down to the 600 there. So I mean, it's fairly easy to actually sustain through the token system now. But if you get into a point where, let's say I'm at 1,000, then I die, then I lose 400. Then you can instantly respawn. So I instantly respawn, then I instantly die, then now I'm down another 400. I'll be sitting at around probably 250 tokens. Now I cannot actually spawn this character for another round. I'm going to have to go through a waiting period now. So if I had a G43 character or something like that, I already died twice with my super geared guy. The only thing I can actually pull out instantly would be a very cheap character like a G43, just a semi-auto guy, to get back into the fight as soon as possible, and hopefully I don't die right away on the third character. So I can just keep surviving, get my tokens back up, and then when I die again I can pull out my more expensive characters and use those guys. So there's going to be a price to go with everything, and basically if you survive with most of these setups, if you survive for over a minute, you'll be fine. If you're dying constantly, you're going to want to rethink about what setup you can use. You might just want to be running with a lot of cheaper semi-auto or SMG characters, as each of the guns only costs about 150, and you only need about, say, 2 or 3 different mods on them to make them worthwhile using. So this would be cheapest build. Or you could run with, like, let's just say, like a pure pistol guy, for instance, until you cap your tokens out, and then you can sustain yourself for quite a while. So there'll be different strategies involved depending on your playstyle, how aggressive you are, how often you die. All those things will pretty much come into play. So I mean, just actually getting into numbers now, we can see that the LMGs are going to cost 250 each. These are going to be the most expensive. These, it's basically based on how many gear slots the weapon actually carries and takes up. So the LMGs, normally they would take up 7, which would be the max. So, and they are very good, so they do cost the most. 250. It's quite a hefty price to pay. Plus, you're probably going to mod them out, so this LMG would be closer to 300 just for the gun alone. So quite expensive if you're going for just a huge, geared up guy. So LMGs 250, assault rifles are also 250. Now the only difference is the Americans get it a little bit easier. The Americans get a lot more freedom as far as the assault rifle goes. Assault rifle and carbine is only 150 due to the carbine only taking up 6 slots of gear. So the Americans definitely get a buff on their carbine in the current stats of the game. That could change. As well, the Americans get a major buff on the Johnson. The Johnson is much cheaper than all the other LMGs. And Johnson only takes up the 6 slots there. So you still got extra slots you could use for an extra med pouch or whatnot. So big buffs for the Americans. As far as those two weapons go, these two weapons are already used a lot right now, and because they're the cheapest, they cost as much as semi-auto, so basically they're going to be spammed even more so now. It's going to be part of your budget soldier, I would say. So you've got 250. And then now you get into the 150s. There's no actual 200 slot token. It's just 250, then 150. So 150 is going to be your SMG, your bolt actions, your semi-autos, and then drops all the way down to 30 for your pistols, your melee weapons, your anti-tank throwable weapons, which AT is getting a huge nerf this patch, and I'll be showing off in-game footage of what exactly that nerf is, but basically, these handheld grenades, H3s, they're going to be very useless now. They're only going to be useful for just immobilizing a vehicle or knocking off a track, which doesn't actually completely immobilize a vehicle. It just slows it down a lot. So, quite a lot to think about as far as potential builds. It shouldn't actually change. If it really depends. It's all about playstyle. I assume majority of people are just going to have a standard character like this one here, where it's just a geared out semi-auto, some kind of med bag or whatnot, which is only going to give you about 300 tokens, and then you'll have your higher geared out character with an LMG, maybe fully modded out with maybe some meds, and that's going to be 400, so 100 tokens more or 100 tokens less. Like, budget and then main geared guy. I assume that's what most people are going to go with. That's what I'm going to go with. And if I can't if I can't sustain the main character and I'm dying a lot and I want to redeploy as fast as possible so I don't have to wait a minute to get my tokens back up, then then I'll pull up my budget soldier. So along with that, there's also the vehicle portion of things. You can have up to 4 vehicles in your quick slot here. So you pretty much you can pull out all the vehicles you want to pull out. Like, I could run a truck, half-track, a motorbike, and then I can run an amphibious vehicle. So I mean, you got options here. You can bring out everything that you want to bring out, and of course everything has a price to it. Standard trucks are going to be the cheapest price here. Half tracks are going to be the most expensive, and then even motorcycles and amphibious, they're going to cost you a decent price. But the vehicles, these are in a different token slot. Your infantry tokens are going to be one slot, vehicles are a second slot. So you're still going to be able to have, like, get vehicles when you want to get them. A lot of people will start using just ground forces and jeeps instead of motorcycles, just so they can sustain, keep pushing, keep reinforcing, all that stuff. Tankers are getting a huge impact, especially American tankers. American tankers get a buff and a nerf at the same time. Their really low budget light tanks are going to be extremely spammable. These are only 200 tokens for Stuart and M2A2. These are very spammable. The other factions, as far as light tanks go, you're looking at every faction is 240 or 250 for their standard bullet tank. But as far as their next tier up tank, they're usually about 350. Americans get the buff there, and in that their Stuart is only 240 as far as things are right now. So their Stuart is going to be basically their spammable tank, but their Chaffee is going to be their super godly expensive tank. So you pretty much get one Chaffee. As soon as you die in your Chaffee, it's going to take you maybe 2.5 minutes to respawn a brand new Chaffee. So in that time, you're just going to swap over and play your Stuart. So I mean, if you knock out a Chaffee, that guy can no longer play his Chaffee for a good over 2 minutes. It's a really long wait time. Same with any heavy tanks, they're all 800. Over 2-minute respawns on heavy tanks. Medium tanks are a little bit better, around like slightly over a minute respawn times on the medium tanks. And the tank destroyers are going to be very spammable. M10s are cheap enough. Hellcats only 350. These are definitely going to be spammable. So definitely options as far as tanks go. New tank builds. You can slot in 4 vehicles. So for instance, you might run tank destroyer. You might run all top of the line tanks and just, you know, swap in your infantry guy and maybe just play infantry guy without a vehicle, and then when your vehicle tokens max out, you'll pop in your Chaffee and just swap between Chaffee and infantry, since these vehicles run under the same token system. So you could choose whether you want to play an infantry guy with a vehicle or a tanker with a tank, and just keep swapping out between the two characters to sustain both the different token resources, since tankers, they don't really cost any soldier deploy. Like, I just have a tank guy, he's 100, and he's only got a wrench right now, which is only 30. So 130 on my tankers, as opposed to a $300 infantry guy. So, different playstyles can come into play here as well. You could also switch between recon. You could pull out your recon guy, he's going to be fairly cheap too. Depends on what he's got geared on him. Recon guy could run you under around 300 or so, and you could use him, just keep him at a distance, snipe with him. Pilot guys are going to be super cheap too. All the planes are very spammable, but the planes can also die very fast too, so there's quite a lot that can actually, you know, just pretty much new strategies, new meta, token system. Try not to die as soon as you, like, try not to be dying pretty quick. You're gonna have to definitely pick and choose. Like, if you got enough tokens, you can be aggressive. If you don't have enough tokens, you might want to hold off for a little bit, take a defensive position, you know, get a few extra kills on the board. It's like cut down the tokens of the enemy team. So everything's gonna have a price. New playstyles, new meta. This is pretty much about as far as the actual UI goes here. So there's just a lot to look at. So many options here. So many builds that are just not going to be viable anymore. Like, if you're running an MG with a bazooka before, now that's going to cost you over 400 tokens, plus the 100 infantry, over 500 tokens to spawn. Just a pure out Rambo AT guy. So you're going to have to be careful about like what you do with that. Standard build I would run would even be a semi-auto Zuka. Now this build is suddenly looking to be kinda expensive. So there's just, it's just gonna be just a whole new thing for anybody. Even if you're trying to get into the game, come back to play in the game. Just lots to look for as far as this goes. Now I'll show off a little bit of some in-game analysis now. Alright, so now that we're in-game, we can get a better perspective on the actual tokens, vehicle spawns, and basically what the game's going to look like now. So let's go over a few key things here. So we've got soldier deploy tokens and vehicle deploy tokens. So these will be your two different categories that you'll be working with here. You can see the vehicle deploy tokens, it's got a nice picture of a tank there, but vehicle deploy tokens is just universal. So pretty much this is for your jeeps, your cars, motorbikes, everything that's a vehicle is going to get pulled from these particular tokens. And then your soldiers, your tanker, your pilot, infantry guy, based on how many tokens your guns actually cost. So you'll be able to balance out these two tokens, say spawning your really cheap tanker guy, but your really expensive chaffee. And then when you lose your chaffee, then you can just spawn as a regular, really expensive soldier guy, and then that's one way that you'll be able to just balance out between the two different tokens. But it'll come down to playstyle preference and just, how long you can survive, just different factors involved in that. So you'll be able to pick and choose, what you want to do. Because with some of these tanks being very expensive, like the chaffee, you get one chaffee, and then as soon as you die, all those tokens are deducted, because you only have 1,000 max tokens, so they all get deducted. Now you're at 200 tokens, and it's over a 2-minute wait period to get another chaffee. So you're gonna have to maybe mix it out and pull in a cheaper steward, or just go infantry until you can build back up your vehicle tokens. So pick and choose what you want to do. So you'll notice there's token counter top left, like I said, maybe about 5 tokens per 1 second. So probably around somewhere between, let's say, 40 seconds to a minute and a half for majority of the infantry builds, and then slightly longer for really specific tank builds, like top of the line tanks are going to be over a minute and a half spawns on average. So you'll notice that the whole Squad 2.0 has been completely it's gone. Ain't no Squad 2.0 anymore. Now you can pick and choose whatever class you want to play. As long as you got the tokens, you can spawn that guy. You can also see your squad members on the side. It'll say whether they're deployed, not deployed, just everything. You get to see everything, what your characters are all equipped with, what they can afford to spawn as. And getting into the actual battle, there's lots of different variables on the right side of if you're in a tank or if you're in a vehicle. More so if you're in a tank, so there's just massive. You got armor values thrown in your face, it just covers the screen. Armor values, fuel tank, ammo, all these things are very useful, and I'll be covering most of those in part 2, but there's just a lot of variables in there, and now it's going to be aiming for weak points more so than just aiming at a tank or another vehicle. Yes, aiming at a tank, another vehicle, you're probably going to hit one of those weak points, but if you focus on specific weak points, you'll be able to drop that tank or that vehicle very fast, even in 2 shots. That's just how this new system is going to work. So you'll be getting experience for any kind of armor damage, armor destruction. You break a track, you get XP, anything like that. All those things are going to be granting XP now. And then there's just going to be a whole bunch of different modules that you're going to have to repair. You're going to have to get out of your tank to repair your track if you want to be traveling at the max speed. So lots of very key things going on here. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 so far. Just wanted to give you a little bit of look at the actual in-game and cover the UI. So thanks for watching part 1. We'll be back again with part 2, going over the actual vehicle mechanics a little bit more in depth. So hope to see you then.
Whoa, shit. Kitten Crack Company attack! No, what?
Oh.
What the fuck, Alex?
It broke. It broke. I just put a mine on it, what the hell?